Government. For more on today's big announcement, I'm joined by James Woolsey, a former director of the CIA. He was an advisor to Donald Trump's campaign on national security and intelligence issues. And Jeremy Bash, he was chief of staff to former Defense Secretary Leon Panetta. James Woolsey, let me start with you because Donald Trump, a man you've given advice to, has a big decision to make. He's coming to office 22 days from now. The president who is leaving office just put these brand new sanctions in place. If Donald Trump's asking you for advice, does he keep those sanctions in place or does he get rid of them? What would you say?
Well, rather than forecast what I would advise him, let me just say what I think myself. I think that the Obama administration missed a bet on this by not taking legal action. Now, for anybody who is overseas and was hacking into us, we're probably not going to get him extradited by Russia to the United States. But for people in this country and people who have done something that there is evidence of that is a crime, I don't see why not to proceed under the criminal law with some of these individuals. I think that puts us more in a position of having made a judgment that having enough evidence for it to be an indictable offense. And I think that then the Russians are in the position of having to explain or defend themselves, and rather than being in this curious situation that the Obama administration has gotten us into, which is essentially politics, just politics.
Do you think the sanctions then are not a good idea?
Well, I think some of them are, and I think they would have more teeth, the ones that can be utilized this way, if they were brought into our legal system. I don't see a reason in this case not to do that.
Jeremy, you hear James Woolsey mention the word politics there. That this is interesting. In 22 days, a new president's coming into office. There was nothing compelling President Obama to take this step today, as opposed to collecting all the information, collecting all the evidence, and apparently they're telling us they think they've got more coming in the next 22 days, and handing it off to the next president, saying, here's what we've got. You're the president. You have to live with, as president, whatever sanctions you decide to impose or not to impose, and let the next president make that decision. There was an affirmative decision to do this now and to take this out of the purview of the next president. Does that demonstrate, do you think, on the Obama administration's part, a judgment they didn't think Donald Trump was going to make the decision they wanted?
Well, the most interesting document that the White House released today here was an assessment by the FBI and by the Department of Homeland Security, and it's called a joint analysis report. And this lays the factual predicate, the unassailable factual predicate, that Russian intelligence services were in fact behind the effort to put a thumb on the scale of the U.S. election, which is an astounding statement in itself. And what this document does is it actually gives the basic information: which actors within the Russian government, what were their internet protocol addresses, what was the malicious code that they used to try to infiltrate our democratic process. And I think I just want to mention one line from this document because it's so revelatory. It says, this activity by Russia was directed at the U.S. government and its citizens. And I think the point is that the next administration, when they come in, they will find that Russian hacking and Russian activity will be directed at the whole government, not just the Obama government. It will be directed also at the Trump administration and the government under Donald Trump. And so they're going to have to deal with this one way or another. This is not something they can turn a blind eye to. This is nothing they can sweep away.
Let me ask you this, though, just a bigger picture question here. Are we just discovering this now? I mean, there are some specifics here, obviously, in terms of what came out through this WikiLeaks, through the emails from the Democratic Party and everything. But the idea of Russia, the idea of an adversary, the idea of a country that has the ability to potentially hack, at least, would be trying to get into a political party, into the government, into an educational institution. I mean, that's one of the things this report seems to say, that this has been happening for a long time before now.
It's been known since the summer, and then it was revealed publicly in October, and now here we are post the election by a few weeks, and the full complement of information can now be released.
To come close to quoting former President Clinton in a different context, it all depends on what the "this" is. The Russians have a program called disinformation. They doctor photographs, they rewrite things, they forge. They have a lot of people, thousands of people involved in doing it, and they've been doing it since the 1930s anyway. And they use it to go against institutions in the West that they believe damage them. They go against democratic political parties in Europe. They go against the Catholic Church. They go against Jews. They believe that anybody that might resist their views and the kind of power they want to have, they would like to undermine their credibility. And so Russians have been doing this for nearly 3/4 of a century. What's new is cyber, which has this characteristic of being able to be masked much better than the other methods of militarily against.
And so the Obama administration is saying today they've unmasked it. They're putting this report out there. They're putting these details out there. And yet the man you advise still giving no public indication that he's persuaded Russia was actually trying to do this. He's made public comments saying, hey, you really can't prove that anybody did it. He's saying we should get. You advise him.
He may well be thinking and consulting his senior people, which I would suggest is what you want him to do.
Is he taking it seriously enough, though? You've been around him. Is he taking this seriously enough in your judgment?
Well, I'm certain he'll take it seriously, but that seriously may not mean make a decision in one day. It may be better to take it seriously and take it seriously for several days. Anyway.
But let me also add, because Director Woolsey led the Central Intelligence Agency and knows how important it is when there is strong trust between the intelligence community and a president, and also when there isn't strong trust, how damaging that can be in both directions. And I personally believe, having served at the CIA, and I believe Director Woolsey would agree with this, that it is going to be very important for this White House, this administration, to listen to the intelligence briefings, to receive those intelligence briefings, to hear from the nonpartisan, professional, analytic cadre at the agency and across the other intelligence agencies, and to take that into consideration and put it into the policy mix. They may come out with a policy view that some will agree or disagree with, but at least to have that factual basis of the intelligence picture is got to be a critical part of presidential decision making.
And they don't need to talk about it. Teddy Roosevelt had it right: speak softly and carry a big stick, and sometimes the softly is so soft you aren't heard at all. They would be far more effective, I think, by using their cyber and other tools in such a way as to brace Russia substantially, and instead of issuing awful statements and insulting and getting into this spin that they're starting to get into, it looks like. What about saying something that's friendly and
when you say,
because they've just lost 90 people, military people, in the Red Army Chorus, which is a big institution in Russia. Why not offer sympathy for that?
You say getting into this. I want to be clear what you're talking about when you say getting into this crazy kind of spin. Where are you seeing the crazy kind of spin in this?
I was thinking of the Obama administration, and I'm thinking particularly of their trying to make the overall situation back with the situation with Israel look as if Israel is the problem and its settlements. And I think that is very far from true. I think the heart of the matter is that the problem is that the Palestinians want to kill.
Okay, but I just wanted to be clear. I just wanted to be clear. You weren't talking about today's the announcement today and the report that was put out today. I just want to be clear.
One needs to pay attention, I think, to what has happened and has led up to it. That's what.
Got it.
Steve,
okay.
If I could just suggest
very quick final word, Jeremy. Yes.
A different frame. Of course, we will express sympathy for the plane crash that took down 90 members of the Russian vocal chorus. But Russia today is doing a number of nefarious things around the world. They are allowing the liquidation of Aleppo and the assault on a civilian population. They are confronting NATO and NATO allies all across Europe. They have annexed Crimea and have controlled Ukraine. They're doing things that are not helpful. They attacked our election process. And I think that's got to be the frame. That's got to be the mode. I agree with Senator McCain and Senator Graham. This has to be job number one for the next administration.
Yep, no, and the irony, boy, if anybody remembers 4 years ago, it was Mitt Romney, President Obama's opponent, who said Russia, Putin, our number one geopolitical foe. He was ridiculed by the Democrats, ridiculed by Barack Obama, and this is how the Obama administration ends. There is definitely some irony there. James